the foundation and philosophy of our organization is words. And when you consider this day Veterans Day, I think about some of the words for us to use for those that have served and have served. And those words include commitment, sacrifice, courage, responsibility, service, integrity, and excellence. My father served for 8 years, with most of them in covert operations, like the Bay of Pigs. I know it is not just a job, it is a lifelong sacrifice and a commitment to our country. No matter your political affiliation, our speaker today is a veteran. And today is the second most favorite day to yesterday, which was the Marine's birthday, celebrating 247 years. Philadelphia was the foundation of the Marines, and it's a fascinating story if you have a chance to look at it. You have a chance to correct me if I'm wrong. Our speaker is the founder of Think Great and Think Great Foundation, which awards scholarships to military spouses. He draws from his experience as a U.S. Marine, executive business leader, sales professional, father, husband, patriot, entrepreneur, and through those works, he helps organizations achieve new levels of success. He uniquely combines leadership deployment, sales preference, sound like Fetterman, sales preference, a signature planning or strategic planning and strategies and techniques that empower team members and leaders to exceed expectations. Our speaker inspires audience, including me, across the country in nearly every industry. Think Great is a certified veteran-owned business, and our speaker is also the author of the Think Great collection, which is available after the show. So if you would, push your chairs back. Please stand and welcome our speaker, Erik Therwanger.
Scott, hey, thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you. Woo! How many are fired up to be here today? Or is it just me? I know, right? I've been looking forward to this, Don. Thank you for making this happen, Patty. Thank you for being so welcoming for me being here. And everybody, thank you for giving me a little bit of time today to talk about a topic I'm very passionate about, leadership, which is so important right now. And as we get started here, I did want to add what Scott was saying is absolutely true. The Marines were founded in Philadelphia at a place called Tun Tavern, which no longer exists, but it was a bar. And so the Marine Corps was born in a bar. No jokes. That's why we get passionate about our birthday every single year. Now, I do have to find out, since I'm surrounded by so many amazing people and so many amazing veterans, I just want to see what branches are represented here. How many we got from the Army? Ooh, wow, okay, outnumbered. All right. Geez. How about Navy? Oh, man, okay. Air Force. Okay, 2 Air Force guys, and they're clustered together back there. I like that. How about Marine Corps? Any Marines? Hoorah. All right. Just 2 Marines? All right, all right. Okay, Space Force. No? So we can talk about the Space Force today. Fair enough. All right.
Coast Guard.
The Coast Guard. Any Coast Guard? All right, Coast Guard. Yeah, sorry, Coast Guard. How about just anybody from the National Guard here, served in the Guard? All right. Well, you know, we got over 2 million men and women serving our great nation right now. Did I miss somebody?
I served in the Guard, Army Reserve, I got a whole career of stuff.
Hey, there's over 2 million people serving our nation in many, many different capacities. So I'm always excited to speak on Veterans Day, and thank you for having me here today. This presentation came out in about March 15th of 2020. Everybody remember March 15th of 2020, around that time period? Yeah. So a lot happened over the last 2.5 years plus, right? And so our clients from all over the country were calling us up as a leadership coach saying, how do I lead people through this? What are we supposed to do? Because nobody had been through any training. That wasn't in anybody's plans to face a worldwide pandemic where everything shut down. And so as a leadership coach, and having written a leadership book, people called. And what I'm going to do is share with you a very condensed version of this presentation, which first went out live around that time period. And we had thousands of people from all over the world tune in. Remember when we were Zooming? And I decided to put out a series called Leading Through Chaos. The next one was Planning Through Chaos, and then Selling Through Chaos. And how do we navigate these things? Because leading, planning, and selling are so critical to our business. And the first question I asked many of our clients when they called up is, despite what's going on, how many of you feel your business can be greater? And I'll start with that question here. How many of you feel your business can be greater than it is right now? All right. Or know somebody whose business can be greater. So a lot of the things that we're going to go over today, and I have a handout in front of you, so you'll see a little notepad icon in the bottom right-hand corner from time to time, and it'll allow you to take some notes and just share it with somebody. Share it with somebody that we're still navigating through some chaos. And so when it first broke out, I asked questions. And one of the initial questions I asked of all leaders is, what is your greatest asset in business? And what do you think almost 100% of them said? People. They said people are our greatest asset. And I said, okay. Now locally here, I work with organizations like Hubbard Broadcasting, Red Cow and Red Rabbit Restaurants, US Bank. And so many different industries, and there's many different industries represented here today. And so if people are our greatest asset, then we start to realize that leadership is the people side of our business, regardless of what industry we're in. In fact, even in the military, people are their greatest asset. And they want their people to come home, right? So they want to take care of their people. And during this chaos, they said, okay, I'm going to put together some thoughts to help us to navigate through this. And I'm going to share with you the first slide that my team created based on the thoughts I had on chaos. Because I consider myself an unfortunate expert in chaos. I've been through chaos in many, many different ways. Outside of the pandemic, how many of you have faced chaos in your life? And you don't have to say what it is. And so what you'll notice is, there's 3 phases of chaos. The very first is the obstacle. So let's just use the pandemic, for instance. The pandemic happened. That was the obstacle. And obstacles tend to be more regimented, right? There was restrictions. 6 feet apart, stay-at-home orders, wear your mask, curbside pickup. It was very, very regimented. And then we transitioned. Remember, they started going, you can go back to restaurants now. Okay, now you can't, okay? Stay 6 feet apart, now 3. 2 masks, 3 masks. Right, there was variables. And in any chaos, this second phase is the hardest. Transitions. So quick question for you. Is there anyone in here in the last 2.5 years that's experienced any stress? I'm asking it because transitions are hard, and we tend to notice that transitions are hard on military too. Right? So they may face an obstacle like combat or war or deployment, and that's the obstacle. And things tend to be a little more regimented. Here's what we're going to do. Even though it can get crazy and chaotic. And here's the weirdest part. It's the transition phase that most veterans struggle with. I do more work with veterans in transitioning back to their new life than I do when they're currently serving. And we have a phrase for the stress associated with the military, an acronym. What is it? PTSD. And this is interesting because what's the S? What does the whole acronym stand for? Okay, so it's very important to understand what type of stress. It's not a combat disorder, is it? It's not war disorder. It's not a deployment disorder. What does the S stand for? Stress. And think about this. Just a quick show of hands. How many of you have experienced stress or know somebody who's experienced stress in the last 2.5 years? And what was our rule to transition back? Just bring them all back to work. Everybody will be fine. How many have gone through formal PTSD training for your people in the workplace? You see, at some level, everybody has varying levels, impacts of stress. And yet we didn't know how to handle it. So this presentation allows people to start to unify their people again. Because the media is calling the era that we're in right now something different than I call it. I call it the Great New Era. I've called it this since the beginning of the pandemic. I said we will eventually get to a great new era. But the media is calling it something different right now. What are they calling it? The great what? Resignation. And what they're saying is your people will leave you if you don't know how to lead them. They don't exactly articulate it like I do. They picked the negative phrase for this era. It does not have to be. In fact, it's not the Great Resignation. It's the Great New Era. A lot of resignation happened during this phase right here when I said the mass exodus would happen. And in, August of 2021, 4.3 million people quit their job. 3% of the workforce left a job that pays them. And the number one answer when asked, why did you quit? It was a transition phase. Remember, they said, I don't know. Not sure. Just rethinking some things. And so this one slide has helped us to work with more clients than any slide in the history of me being a coach. I do believe it's the great new era. And it's a great new era for people who want to lead their people, our greatest asset. Now, when we put things in perspective as leaders, and again, going back to what we said earlier about it doesn't matter how you vote, what political affiliation you are, how many feel the world itself, whether it's in the political realm, whether it's in federal, state, city, business, charity organizations, how many feel we deserve better leaders? Worldwide, right? Everybody. We need people who understand leadership. I think there's a lot of people leading people in the world right now that have never been through a leadership course. So my goal is to get every world leader through my course, and I'm going to need your help. All right. They may not want to do it, but that's okay. All right. So when the virus first happened, when the pandemic first happened, Time Magazine did a very interesting article. And this was back before it was COVID-19, it was the coronavirus. So in March of 2020, they released an article, and inside there they had something very profound. They said, the coronavirus outbreak has become the world's largest work-from-home experiment. It was an experiment. But they missed the boat. We weren't just experimenting with working from home. We were, and because according to Gallup, within 1 month, 62% of the workforce that remained was remote, without any training, any development to get us there. What was the big catchphrase for 2020? Your mute is on. And don't stand up. Some people weren't dressed for, you know what I'm saying, right? Some people went viral. All right. But here, I think some other experiments happened. I know other experiments happened because we coached businesses through all this. There was a business survival experiment. How many know people whose businesses didn't make it? A lot of them didn't make it. There was a communication experiment. How do we communicate through all this? Team building, culture, a sales experiment, engagement, planning, vision, and so on and so forth. But that's not even the biggest experiment that happened. The biggest experiment happened from day one, and that was a leadership experiment. We found out who's who through the pandemic. Because leaders are needed during the toughest times, not just the best of times. And as soon as challenges hit, we find out who's who as a leader. Many leaders just did this, the old, call me when it's better. But we had a lot of leaders reach out to us and say, how can I be better during the challenge? And that's why we're needed. We have the opportunity to be the beacon of positivity, to shine the light on the pathway for people so they know where to go. Because one of the number one comments we receive from leaders is when they described how they felt during the pandemic, they said, I feel lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. And so we came up with all these ways to help them pass, not fail, the leadership experiment. And we're still in chaos. We're in the third phase. This is still chaos. Nobody could call everything. First of all, in 2019, nobody had in their plan, hey, in 2020, we're going to have a worldwide pandemic. And in 2021, nobody had in their plan, we're going to have record inflation. They didn't know when it would hit. All the things that are hitting right now, nobody called monkeypox, right? Didn't talk to anybody, go, you know what's coming? There was a lot of things that came that we didn't expect. How many feel in the next 14 months, getting us through 2023, we'll experience things we never saw coming? And you have to navigate your way through that chaos. That's what's critical. Okay, so here, there's the little icon on the bottom right-hand side. So what I first started doing is identifying, as an unfortunate expert in chaos, I started saying anytime you face chaos, we want to focus on 5 things. Keep 5 things at the center of our thoughts. Number 1, be the beacon of positivity. That's why I like being at the Optimist Club. It's so much better than when I go speak at the Pessimist Club. You know what I mean? That's a tough crowd. They're booing everything. All right, so what I mean by that is we have the opportunity to shine our lights as leaders, be the beacon. If we were lost at sea in a dark storm, we would look for the light and we would follow that. We also have to promote forward thinking, right? People don't want to feel lost. They want to know we're going somewhere. How many of you have a mission or a vision, let's say a vision statement for your organization? Right? So people can follow you to that vision. They can follow you to those goals. We set goals in the present, we accomplish them in the future. We have to create a sense of urgency. I'm about finished with my 8th book. It's called Unleash Your Business Warrior. I have an entire chapter dedicated to fighting complacency, to guard against complacency. I have a gentleman that's a veteran at US Bank. He's proofreading it for me and actually said, he goes, I've already started implementing chapter 2. I said, the book's not finished yet. I said, this is just the initial draft, but I've known him a long time, but I understand one of the side effects of the pandemic in the business sector was complacency. People have lost their drive. And leaders, we have to help get that back. We have to increase accountability. Accountability was lost a lot during the pandemic. There were people telling their bosses, I'm not going to be at that meeting. I will not be on Zoom, and if I am, I'm not turning my camera on. The tail was wagging the dog for a good 20 months. And that's not the way it should be. So we're teaching leaders how to regain control inside the workplace. And the other thing is celebrating accomplishments. These are the 5 things we should focus on. These are always important, but during times of chaos, these become priorities. And so I'm just going to give you some ideas on these today. And I'm open for questions, too. So my background. So it was alluded to that I was in the Marine Corps. And I became a Marine on November 13th, 1987. So that's when I earned the title. And my job was a 7311. Does anybody know what a 7311 was? I think they've changed the actual code. I was an air traffic controller. But I had to get through these guys first. Those are my drill instructors. How many of you have onboarding in the workplace? Anybody have an onboarding program? Like one person here? Okay. So, hold on. Think about this for a second. What's our greatest asset? People. How you bring them in is called onboarding. You're like, they're our greatest asset. It's sink or swim here. We throw it against the wall, see what sticks. It's trial by fire. But they are our greatest asset. All right, so yes, we need onboarding programs. All right. Yes, you have to have. We help organizations design onboarding because what's our greatest asset? People. And leadership is the what business? People. It's the people business, just to remind you. Yes. Now, they didn't make it easy for us, but I did graduate. Okay. And this is where I worked as an air traffic controller. How many of you have flown anywhere recently? How many of you plan on flying anywhere recently? How many are glad you don't have to wear a mask on a plane anymore? All right. How do you feel knowing 18-year-olds are controlling traffic? Oh, it's happening all over the country, by the way. The Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Guard, they have 18-year-old air traffic controllers just like me up there at the busiest military airport in the world, Yuma, Arizona. Also the hottest airport in the world. But everybody flew there. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, they all flew there. We controlled civilian traffic as well. I remember one of my first calls. It was 1988. Didn't even know they really exist. I thought it was fake. I thought it was just a movie. One of the first commands I had was Yuma ground, Top Gun 1-4, ready to taxi. And I was training, and I'm like, oh, hey. And the corporal training me, he's like, Marine, stay focused. He goes, give him the command. I'm like, I said, I didn't know they were real. He's like, stay focused, Marine. And what I said was, Top Gun 1-4, Yuma ground, taxi to runway 35, caution the C-130 on your left. What I wanted to say is that you, Mav? Right? I didn't say Goose because, too soon? Sorry. Okay, he didn't make it. Now, how did they make this happen? How do they do this? It's because in the military, every single person is developed to think and act like a leader, not just trained at their job. Whoa! Whew. Okay. Most organizations don't even adequate adequate training, let alone development. It's a combo. It's the yin and yang. So I was trained as an air traffic controller, trained with my rifle, trained to rappel, trained to swim, their way. I was developed to think and act like a leader, trained at my job as an air traffic controller, developed to think and act like a leader. Leadership seeds were planted in me, even though nobody reported to me. And that's what empowered me to be up there. In your organizations, don't just train and develop. Do the full package. Every single veteran here was taught leadership. Is that right, gentlemen? Every single one, and they all had different jobs. Some of us were in the tower, somebody was in a submarine. That guy's got, I cannot be in a submarine. Also, they don't ask Marines to be in submarines, probably for good reasons. Don't miss the development side. The development side is critical. Your tax dollars pay for development of leaders in the military. You're paying for it. Get a return on it in your organization. That is something I can help you with. Now, how many of you own one of these at home? Anybody own a butter knife? I don't know why everybody laughs when that slide goes up. All right, Patty, you might want to look at this. Is there anyone who does not own a butter knife? Okay, because we want to make sure you go home with a butter knife today. Now, butter knives are designed to do what? Spread butter. To spread things around. Okay. I know, we got an awesome crowd here. How many of you ever used it as a flathead screwdriver? Just be honest. All right. I know you did because you were in the Army, right? That was probably in your utility cartridge belt, right? Here's your butter knife. Standard issue. Okay, there's a lot of leaders out there that aren't bad people. They just spread things around. There's leadership butter knives. How many have ever worked for a leader or with a leader who should not have been leading other people? Because they had the position, they didn't understand the purpose of leadership. They had the title, they didn't know how to blaze a trail. Just got myself fired up. Sometimes I'm going to fire myself up, and I just got to decompress for a second because I got so excited on that one. All right. Now, we don't want to be leadership butter knives, do we? There's a different type of leadership blade out there, and it's the leadership katana, the weapon of the ancient samurai. And they didn't just hand it out like, hey, for an extra $1 an hour, you want to be a samurai? Do you want to try it out? No, if they gave me one of those, I would have hurt myself. You got to be trained, right? Developed. Now, there's a different process for making this, even though it's still metal, right? It goes into the kiln, it goes into the heat, it goes into the intense fire, and becomes moldable and pliable. And when they take it out, they pound it. There's heating and pounding and cooling and heating and pounding and cooling. There's a tempering or a forging process that creates that type of blade, that creates that type of leader. You see, what we're coming out of, this chaos, there has never been a hotter fire for leaders, but most walk away. They stay dull. Our opportunity as leaders is to go into the fire. To go into the fire, to experience that so we could be forged as leaders. You see, we're all at the same starting point. Nobody has ever successfully led a team out of a worldwide pandemic 2.5 years later. We're all at the same starting point. Doesn't matter that I wrote a book. Doesn't matter that I have programs. I'm at the same point you are. I'm just doing the first 5 words of my book. Right under introduction, it says, make the decision to lead. Every single day I want to be a leader. And I embrace the challenges because that's when we get stronger. Okay, now, typically you keep your butter knives in a drawer like that. No, that is not mine. No, I do not have wallpaper as... I just want to set that clear because after one presentation, somebody came and said, is that really your utility drawer? I said, no, it is not. Now, that's where you store butter knives. And a lot of organizations kind of put their leadership butter knives on pedestals when they should be actually sharpening them and forging them. Have you ever walked into somebody's house who owns a katana? Where do they keep the katana? It certainly doesn't fit in there. Okay, on the wall. Or where else might they put it? On the mantle, right? It goes here because it symbolizes something. Have you ever walked into somebody's house and seen a butter knife on their mantle? Happens in business every day. Every single day I walk in, there's butter knives, and we forge them. We get them sharper because the world needs sharper leaders. Every business needs sharper leaders. All right. Now, I told you I was an unfortunate expert in chaos. When I left the Marine Corps, I used my GI Bill, and in 1991 I went to film school, and I met the girl of my dreams in 95. And we got married in 98. And this little dude, Jake, can you stand up? Is that little dude. Now, how many of you have ever set goals and then life threw you a curveball and made it hard to handle, right? And so we got married 10 months. 10 months after we were married, Gina got a call from her doctor and she heard 3 words. Looking at that picture, what 3 words did she hear? You have cancer. What do you think happened to our goals? Can cancer be considered chaos? And my role shifted, right? My role shifted, and I became a leader in the household. I had to manage some things, but I became a leader in the household. And we were told it was very aggressive, stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And eventually, and I'm condensing the story here, she had 7 cycles of chemotherapy that didn't work, a month of radiation that didn't work, and then finally went to the City of Hope and stayed in a 10-by-10 sterile room for 30 days while they attempted to get her white blood cell count high so that they could actually administer a stem cell transplant. And yes, that is me with hair. And I wore a mask during that chaos. during the Gulf War era, I wore a mask when we were training and getting gassed by our leaders in the field. And I wore a mask during this time. Not opposed to masks, prefer not to wear them though. But it was right in here that I had the opportunity to be a leader, not just a manager. Is there a difference between leading and managing? How many would agree with there is? And what would you say is the biggest difference? Like what is the difference? And don't say the spelling, because I had a guy one time say the spelling and he was right. So they're spelled differently, but we get a yes to that answer very quickly, or that question, right? The difference is, you have something?
Setting by example.
Okay, so leaders may lead by example, right? Okay, so on that note, could a manager set the example?
Yes.
Okay, so but I know the direction you're going in. Yes, sir.
Now, I think there is a difference. The difference, I think, is manager, in my view, kind of handles the momentary details, whereas a leader has some kind of a vision. So
Okay.
he or she may see these details, but they're coordinating into some unknown or some
Yes.
vision.
Yeah, assigned to leaders, like having vision, sharing vision, stretching vision, correct? But is it possible that a manager could also have vision and share it too? It is. And so we have to be able to break down the exact difference, but you're heading in the right path. But let me say where I get to in the book. Here's where it is. We manage work and we lead people. We manage projects, we manage budgets, we manage inventory, we manage goals, we lead people. We inspire them, we motivate them, we encourage them, we coach them, we mentor them, we guide them. We do both. Now, if you want to test this theory out, I have a perfect example for you. How many have a significant other at home? Okay, so tonight, go home and manage that person. We will never see you again. But when your family is faced with challenges, you can be a better leader on the home front. I managed her pills. I managed her appointments. I led her. I guided her, not just through this cancer, but 3 years later she was diagnosed with basal cell cancer. And then in 2010 she was diagnosed with breast cancer because the radiation didn't work, but gave her a parting gift. And then while she was recovering from a mastectomy, because she couldn't have radiation twice, in 2011 she was diagnosed with melanoma. Then we moved out here to Minnesota to be around her sister in 2011. And in 2016, she passed away of cardiac arrest due to all the treatments of her heart while I was doing CPR and pumping her heart for her. And the first responders showed up and they took over, but they couldn't get her back. They hit her with the defibrillator twice and couldn't revive her. And my daughter watched her pass away at 9 years old at the time. And I sent her downstairs. I said, don't come up until I call for you. And the first responders, they took over, and then the first responder on duty who was in charge, first day in charge, by the way, his name was Bryce, he said, I want to hit her again. He hit her a third time, and he got a pulse. And she's still with us today. She has a slightly weaker heart, but she is still with us today. She went to the Marine Corps, the Navy Marine Corps ball with me a few weeks ago, and she'll be at our foundation event next week. What a tough lady, huh? Right? I know. She's like Special Forces Marine right there. But what a tough lady. And it keeps my perspective in check. Because, like guys, I got to keep things in mind too. Like, one thing that's hard for the ladies to understand is that guys have really painful tummy aches, right guys? Like when, you know what I'm saying? Like when we suffer. And I woke up the other morning and I had a tummy ache, a man tummy ache. And it was really bad. And I rolled over and what's that?
Go to the back.
Yeah. I rolled over. Yeah. That's pretty much what she said. I rolled over and I looked at her and I said, I'm going to work. I can't run that by her. She's beaten cancer 4 times and been dead and came back. She was dead for 15 minutes. But during these times, we have the opportunity to be a better leader, not just in the workplace. Leadership can go home with you. You can be a better leader in your communities and in the home front. So I share this with you because that was one of the first chaoses that I've ever experienced, and that was in 1999, and it's been going on since then. She still goes into AFib mode. We have health issues every few days we have to navigate. Now, I also experienced chaos in the Marine Corps when Operation Desert Storm was launched. I also experienced chaos around the 2008 era. Remember the Great Recession, even though there was nothing great about it? It was the Great Recession, and I led a media company. So I was the vice president of a media company, and I led them through that. And here's what I always went back to, whether it was cancer, whether it was a wartime, whether it was a recession time, whether it was COVID, I went back to some of the basic tactics I learned in the military. And I realized through all chaos The military and the business sector handles it differently. They handle it differently, and I want to share with you what some of those differences are so we can empower people to navigate, because the military is in constant chaos mode. When you start there, they put you in chaos. But the military, all branches, prepare their people for chaos. They train us, they develop us, they prepare us, that they know they're going to put us in chaos. The business sector is different. We teach people to avoid chaos at all points. Nobody could avoid the pandemic. Nobody was exempt from it. And so the civilian population that didn't have military training was at a disadvantage. I mean, geez, at least we went to boot camp first. At least we went to our A school. Then they might consider deploying you. It wasn't like the movie Stripes, and I know everybody in here saw that one, right? They go to boot camp, and then the whole platoon goes and fights a war. That's great. That's not the way it happens. There's a lot of training leading up to it. We deployed our people remotely with no training, not even how to handle it mentally. So I'll share with you some tactics that I learned in the military that you can apply in the business sector. This is about onboarding, and no, you can't do that. Don't do that back in the workplace. But the boot camp or the basic training environment created a fog of war for us. They constantly disoriented us so that we learned how to conduct ourselves, operate under chaos, with them yelling at us, or on the obstacle course, or in the gas chamber. And it even says here, even the brave cry here, because they do make you take your mask off and inhale. Or whether you're on the rifle range. And so you're hitting all of these obstacles, these challenges, and they teach you how to go head on into it. Not run from it, but go into the challenge. Go into the heat. Be forged as a leader. And so it gave me an advantage during all the chaoses I've handled. Now, I do have a little gift for you, although you already own it. It's called a leadership bar. It's yours. You already have one. Every one of us has a leadership bar. Every single person can think and act like a leader, whether we have people following this or not. What do you think is the number one thing we should do with the bar? We could lower it, lower our expectations. We could set it down. We could hit people over the head with it. That's called a power trip, right? You've heard it before, where it's my way or the... Sure. Even though as leaders we hire people better than us. Yeah, okay. That's a whole nother topic. But what should we do with our leadership bar? We should raise it together, right? This is the very first thing. And I know what you're thinking. What should we raise it on? I'm glad you asked that question. We should raise it on unification. Unify our people. We are social creatures that were socially distanced. Think about that. What was the first time frame that we were given? That this will all be over in what? To flatten the curve?
2 weeks.
2 weeks. How many of you in business time frames are important? Like if you had a product that you were going to deliver to me and said, I'll have it to you in 2 weeks, but you took 116 to get it to me. Could there be an issue? Could there be a dissolution of trust? Could there be concerns, frustrations? That's right. I'm not saying they were right or wrong for not hitting the 2 weeks. I'm saying that it caused a thought process to happen. So there's 3 things we want to raise our leadership bar up in the business world. Our leaders, we want to unify our leaders, unify our team, and unify our message. And I promise, I told Patty I'll stay on time, so I'll stay on target. I promise I'll get through this. Here's a few ideas. Some of you may already be doing this. The very first thing I would recommend to unify your people, your leaders, your message, is to have a definition of what it means to be a leader in your organization. Just very simply, here's what it means to be a leader here. Now, I believe in my company at Think Great, a leader is a person who clearly outlines a specified destination and guides people there by course correcting and adhering to the greater purpose behind the goals necessary for success. So we have a definition. Now you can I can see people snapping pictures, that's awesome. You could say a leader at your company is, and just copy that, and that's your definition. But we actually help organizations to create their own unique definition, so there's a shared understanding of what it means to be a leader. Too many people in the business sector are promoted to the position of leader, they're never given any leadership resources, like here's what it means here. You know, in the military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Marine Corps all have slightly different definitions, but they have the word art in there, which means if leadership is an art, as a leader, I'm an artist, and my canvas is my people. Man, that's beautiful. And they also blow stuff up. It's awesome. It's a great dichotomy of our military. Okay, so I recommend having a definition of what it means to be a leader. I also recommend having leadership traits. When I was in the Marines, they gave us 14 of them. JJ did tie buckle. Justice, judgment, dependability, initiative, decisiveness, tact, integrity, enthusiasm, bearing, unselfishness, knowledge, courage, loyalty, and endurance. Right? They just throat punch it. I meant trained it into us. In your organization, have traits. Give them a leadership definition. Give them traits that they can exemplify. Maybe it is integrity. What's your favorite trait? What do you think is the most important trait for a leader? Anybody got any thoughts?
Integrity.
Integrity is a huge one, right? Right? Positivity. Right? Confidence? Ethics. You see, so humility. And so as a young Marine, 18 years old, they planted those 14 traits in us. We weren't perfect at them, but we had to learn to get better. Okay, here's another technique, teamwork. How many feel teamwork's important in the workplace? All right, now help me out here. I'm going to ask for 1 second of enthusiasm. That's it. I promise that's it. Let's say teamwork out loud, like we really mean it. Let's say teamwork like the Vikings just won. What do we got, the Bills this weekend? All right, let's say it like we want them to win it. Are you ready? Let's say it so that the front counter out there gets nervous and says, maybe we should check on them. All right, so give it to me. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Teamwork. Now, the opposite of teamwork is group work. Let's say group work. 1, 2, 3. Group work. It always sucks when you say it. It's never been great. This always sucks, because group work sucks. Because teamwork is awesome. Now, if you look at those pictures, which one's the team in your mind? I love all dogs, I love them all, but if you wanted to go somewhere, which one's the team, the left or the right? The right. Now here's the crazy part. These dogs bark, and science says they're communicating words of encouragement to each other. But it's weird, in the workplace, we're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Hey, congrats on your promotion. I don't want anybody to think I'm too excited, even though yesterday I cheered for my team, painted my face, and wore their jersey. Now, there is differences between groups and teams, and I'm not saying these are bad dogs any more than I'm saying people with a group mindset are bad people. They just haven't been transformed. Now, as a group, we tend to act as individuals, right? It's all about me, 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 not we, and no, I'm not speaking French, right? Just me, me, me. They focus on their personal objectives, and they perform very much in the moment. People with a team, or a group mindset might be your complainers, your whiners, your negative people. They're only focused on the here and now. But a team is different. A team acts as a cohesive unit. We look out for each other. We look out for the person to our left and right. We focus on common objectives. So leaders have set objectives we work on together, and we perform for the future. We are going there, towards our vision, towards our goals, towards our new initiatives, towards what will make us greater. You see, leading isn't hard. It's very simple. Not easy, but simple. We have to give them direction. Okay. That was when we arrived in boot camp. I'll be perfectly clear with you. When you're there at midnight and they have already laid into you for 15 minutes, and all you want to do is go see your mama, nobody there had a team mindset. It was a group mindset. All I could think about is, what if I fail? What if I don't make it? I want to go home. But within 90 days, our leaders, who looked like they were just moved from the last picture to that one, they transformed us. One of the first birthday wishes I got yesterday was from this guy, Ed Bogdan. I went through boot camp with him for 90 days in 1987. It was challenging. The fire was hot. We were forged. We were tempered. And it creates cohesion and camaraderie. Now, in the military, I learned, and I trained military units on goal setting. Every branch has their pre-deployment literature, and all of it suggests setting goals with people you care about. And one of the common things it says is goals reduce stress. One of the first questions I asked was, how many of us know people who have experienced stress? During stressful times, we tend to put our goals on the back burner when we should set them to the front. So I want to encourage you to set 3 goals today. It doesn't have to be right now, but set 3 goals. This is also a great goal setting time. It's Q4, right? This is the mecca of goal setting. This is the mecca of when we do strategic planning. Now, the University of Scranton did a study, and they came up with 92. And the question is, what percentage of people either succeed or fail at their goals? And they came up with 92. How many feel that they found that 92% succeed at their goals? Come on, nobody's optimistic in here? Nobody's like, yeah, that's a great number. No, how many feel that the university found that 92% of people consistently fail at their goals? And you are accurate. That's why we need leaders to guide us right now. So, we're going to have obstacles with goals. Those were my obstacles. I needed to get through those guys to accomplish the goal of becoming a Marine. I'm going to give you a couple tactics that I did. Number 1 is have a goal. How many of you have a goal right now? You don't have to say it out loud. You have a goal. All right. So the first step is have a goal. Second step is give it a timeline. When I went into boot camp on August 24th, 1987, they said, if you make it, if you graduate, if you pass every test and every challenge, you will graduate. And I'm even speaking nice. They didn't speak this nice to us. You will graduate on November 13th, 1987. I took that date and I wrote it in every page of that 400-page handbook they gave us. So every day I saw it. I had a goal and a timeline. Then I did something very important that helped me navigate through that chaos called boot camp. I announced it. I dropped 17 letters in the mail and said to my mom, to my dad, to my brother, to my aunts, to my uncles, to my cousins, to my friends, to my neighbors. I sent them home and I said, my goal, I will graduate and become a Marine on this date. And when that mailbox shut, I had announced it. And of all those people, who do you think wrote me back first? Of course, moms are the best, right? Moms send you your first letters, not your girlfriends. Mom. Moms send you care packages. Dads aren't even aware they went out in the mail. That's all mom's doing, right? I didn't get anything from my dad, but my mom hooked me up. Having a goal, having a timeline, and sharing it moved me into the 8 percenters. How many are committed to being in the 8 percenters? That when you set a goal, you accomplish it. You either hit it on time, ahead of time, or you exceed it ahead of schedule. Whew. Sorry, just got myself fired up again. I set a goal at the beginning of the year to write my 8th book. Not only is it in the proofing process right now, but I already have the idea started for my 9th one. But don't tell Jacob that. Don't let him know. All right, now we're going to bring it all home with great leaders. How many would agree that these people are considered by many to be great leaders, not good leaders? If I were to say to you, Patty, what do you think of Martin Luther King Jr.? It's highly unlikely she would say, kind of a slacker. He was all right, but I could do better, right? We don't put those people in there. We have to ask ourselves, what makes them great? They're not known for their jobs, because what job did Gandhi have? What was his career? He was a lawyer. When was the last time you thought of lawyers and Gandhi in the same? You don't. But when you think of the elevated position of leader, you think of Gandhi. Now, there's some things that these people did. I'm going to give you a quick summary, because we could do it too. The first thing they do is they go into the challenge. How many would agree that the challenges those men and women face are probably far greater than the challenges we face today? They went into it. You don't know the names of leaders who ran from the challenges, but they went into the challenge. Number 2, they stayed true to their vision when they went into the challenge. And I feel that the third thing they did is perhaps the most important. They fostered a lifestyle of leadership. People wanted to follow them. People followed them through dangerous marches where people wanted to hurt them. Now, in the workplace, how many have ever dealt with somebody that had attendance issues? They were constantly late. Anybody ever deal with somebody who's constantly late? How many have ever dealt with somebody who lacked tact? They just didn't talk nice to people. How many have ever dealt with somebody with a bad attitude in the workplace? Or that didn't follow protocols? I know there's 7 steps of the system. I only do 6. And how many have ever experienced somebody waste time in the workplace? You know what's crazy? They're on your payroll. Hey, you want to hear something even crazier? When people followed Martin Luther King Jr. on the marches, when they followed Gandhi, how much was Gandhi and Martin Luther King's payroll budget for ADP? 0. It was $0, and people followed them. You know why? I'm going to tell you what they did. During chaos, during oppressive times, during challenges, during hardships, those leaders shared vision first, then the steps. There's where we're going. Here's how we get there. You know what they do in the workplace? They show up in a meeting, and most meetings suck. And they show up and they say, here's what needs to be done. And then they leave. And they said, my people aren't engaged. And I said, I know why. You missed the biggest part. Remember, help me out here. What are the 4 words of Martin Luther King's vision? What are yours? That could be rhetorical for now. Or the last meeting you're in when they shared vision. Like, we want to create a dynamic wave every day. That's our mission. We want to impact the people. We want to impact people worldwide. That's our vision. We want to get them to think great worldwide. Now, $0 is what they spend on payroll. All right, I'm bringing it all home, Patty. Okay, so this is our guy. The Army has like their famous guys like Patton and Eisenhower. The Navy has Admiral Nimitz. The Air Force, you guys got astronauts. It's awesome. We got Chesty Puller. Anybody ever heard of Chesty Puller? Most decorated Marine in Marine Corps history. Great communicator. He had a message for his people. In fact, when he was in Korea, one of the bloodiest battles ever fought at the Chosin Reservoir, They were surrounded. They were freezing. They were starving. And this is what he said to his Marines. He said, Marines, they're in front of us, behind us, and we're flanked on both sides by an enemy that outnumbers us 29-1. That means for every one Marine, Patty, there were 29 enemies. Is that crystal clear, though? No misunderstandings, right? And then he followed it up with 7 words. Right after he said, Marines, we are surrounded, he said, they can't get away from us now. No more Marines showed up. No more food showed up. We lost 800 Marines during that battle, but not before they took out 35,000 enemy troops. And I had a neighbor 4 doors down from me named Jerry. I called him Sir. But my neighbors called him Jerry. He was there. What are your words when your team needs you the most? Now, I'll give you one. Now, this is what it was said. He said, fight with me so we can go home. Now, maybe don't start your meetings off that way. All right. Last thing here. The number one key to retention, according to Forbes and Inc., is appreciation. When asked, why do you stay? 71% of the people surveyed said, I stay because I feel appreciated. Quick question for you. How much does it cost for us to show appreciation as leaders? Is that the correct cost? Is that not the cost that Martin Luther King used to encourage people to march? Is that not the same cost for Gandhi, for all these great leaders, because they shared vision first? And I'm not saying don't not pay your people. Erik said we don't have to pay them anymore. That's not what I'm saying, and it's being recorded. I'm on record. What I am saying is the cost of appreciation is 0. The number one thing you can do today is write the names of 3 people down. You could call after this and say, I appreciate you. I appreciate the passion that Patty has for this organization. I really do. Not just a thank you, but an appreciation. Now, the cost is 0. But what's the return? That's where we're at. It's priceless. We can show people that we appreciate them. All right. I want to thank you for having me here on Veterans Day. Thank you for perhaps having me go 1 minute over, I think. So I apologize. You know, as a Marine, I got to be on time. So thank you so much. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'll be back at the book station because I know you've got a couple things to get to. So thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.